pen and pad or like an app on your phone you can take notes with. There are sections of this in which most of the sustenance or the substance of what we're going to be talking about is going to be verbal. So we're gonna be writing a blog on it. We'll have everything. That's not going to be like immediate. And a lot of this stuff is stuff you can do tomorrow. So I want to make sure you can take a lot of this stuff in and implement it. Tonight, even if you want to go home and do that. So as long, make sure you got something. If you don't have like a pen and a pad, we can grab one real quick. You good?
I'll get something.
Okay, cool. Are we on?
We are.
Are we live right now?
We are.
Wow.
Everybody say hi. Hi, the internet.
Oh, snap.
Alright, so I'm going to be breaking some presentation etiquette today. I'm not going to be able to walk around and kind of, engage everybody. I want to make sure I can see everyone. Okay, cool. So first of all, thanks for coming. We're really excited to talk about this, talking about how to get your local business ranking on Google. So SEO, search optimization, specific for local businesses. We are Designzillas. We're a digital creative agency from web to marketing, anything creative and digital we like to get our hands on. So if we don't have any questions starting off, if you have questions during it, just wait for me to finish a sentence and raise your hand, and then I'll definitely answer you. And then also if you have questions more so, don't want to interrupt the flow, it's up to you. Just go ahead and write it down and we'll get to it at the end. Sound cool?
Cool.
Awesome.
Okay.
So we are getting your local business ranking on Google. Hold this right here. So I'm Tim Meadow. I'm the lead digital strategist here at Designzillas. I've been here for a year and a half. Started in marketing, evolved into digital, so that's marketing and web and everything else. Everyone here knows the importance of ranking on Google. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. But I want to walk you guys through real quick what your customers go through if they're trying to find you online in general, so not just Google. All right, so I'll give you guys a second because I gotta pull this up. But I want you to
I found
go ahead.
I found him. I see him.
All right, well, you're not going to find a business that quick on the internet. I can't even type my password in as fast as you guys found it. I'm going to give everyone a second to find it so they feel like they also won. But as you can see here, there's lots of distractions. And this is the same thing as online. You have so many different things. So first, we found Waldo. Oh, there you go. Good job, everyone. But there's tons of other distractions. You have social media. You have pop-ups from your calendar notification. You have Facebook, for example. There's just a million different things that are going to distract you from finding your business, or distract a user from finding your business. So this is what it feels like when someone's trying to find you online. When they try to find you on Google, this is what it looks like. It's a bunch of Waldos, because when they try to find you on Google, they're looking for the same service that your competitors offer. So essentially what you want to do is you want to be the first Waldo that shows up on their screen when they search for that service or product that you offer. So now that we know kind of like, sorry, real quick. So you're all Waldos in their eyes. You want to be the first ones that they see. Today we're going to be talking about becoming the first Waldo, on the first page. And so the first thing in order to know, how do I get to Google is the factors to rank on Google. Up here, this is for everything in general. So this is not specific just to local. So you have your My Business signals, which is essentially setting up your Google My Business. Your external location signals, so this is your name, address, and phone number information that's stored all over the web. Your on-page signals, so different on-page tactics. Off-page signals, which is link signals, so who's linking to you and what type of authority do they have. Reviews, social signals, behavioral signals, so how are people interacting with your site? Are they bouncing right out? And then personalization. For local specifically, we're going to talk about these, because these have a little more impact on local than they do on total SEO. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Google My Business. So they make it very easy. You just go to, on the bottom right, we have links here in the slide. So when we put the slide out on Meetup, you can find those links. They make it very easy, user-friendly to get started. And they give you 1, 2, 3 steps right there. This is the most important thing. If you're not on Google My Business, then essentially you're not really on Google Maps. So when people search for your name, search for your product or service, and they're sitting in a location near you, you're not going to show up if you're not on Google My Business. So that's step one. The next step is once you get on Google My Business, what you need to do. So you want to make sure you have a long description. You know, the more content, the better. That gives Google more information to read about your site and your Google My Business. You want to make sure you choose the right categories. Upload a ton of photos, because when you search and you get a little, map thing, it also has photos. So that's really important. And then when people image search something, they might get your photos as well. You want to make sure you have your local phone number on your listing, of course, the address, high resolution profile image, because your first impression is very important. You want to look good. Your opening times and days, and then real reviews from customers. So we're going to actually talk about reviews a little later. That's a very specific thing. Do you guys have any questions on this? Yes.
How would you use this for if you're like just in a remote business? Like say our shop is out of your house, or you work in a co-working space. Do you think that address itself is still like?
Absolutely. So like your address needs to be in the location in which you service. So whether that's, you can even use a PO box if you really need be, if you don't want to use your home. There are a lot of people who do use their home, and that's kind of, it might be a little shady depending upon what you do. You don't want your address out there. Or you can find like a small location that you can use to represent it. Like, so if it's one of your, I guess for SaaS and stuff like that, or web development things, you can't really use like a faux address, but there are ways around it. You still want to create a Google My Business, and then really it's kind of a custom way to kind of get around what type of address to put in there, because it is very important, especially as a local service.
Well, what do you think about those co-working spaces? Sometimes I think
Yeah.
offer like physical addresses.
Yeah, you can do that if you're temporarily there and you know you're going to move. It can be a headache trying to change your address every time you move.
Okay.
That's a good question actually, because I've never thought of that. But I think if you have a working space there and you're going to be there all the time, you can try to put that address and put like Unit A or Unit 1. And I'm just spitballing this. I have no experience with that, but to try to like finagle it a little bit.
Just with that though,
Yeah.
they'll see that there's a lot of businesses with the same address.
Mhm.
So he's right, like you want to say suite or unit or some way to differentiate your address, because that's essentially how they're trying to locate you. And if they're seeing a lot of businesses in that same vicinity, it might be a little,
Yeah. I'll probably recognize that.
as like a duplicate address. But I also want to add, just to throw that in, like we're really focusing on like local, like specific, hyper focusing today on local, right? So like if you're looking for a local service or local product, like how do you get found when you search Orlando web design, or like certain terms that really have like a region like tied to it. So all good points though, like, but I think that's essentially the main topic.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you. So the next thing you want to do is make sure your NAP, which is name, address, phone number, is consistent not just on Google My Business, but across the web. Google doesn't just look at their own platform to try to figure out where you're located and essentially what you do. They run through the internet, really. So the nature of what you do will depend or will dictate where you end up, or what different or websites that you want to be listed on. So for example, if you own like if you do plumbing and things like that, Thumbtack is where you want to be. If you have like an attraction in Orlando, International Drive, anything, Foursquare might be where where you want to use, because there's a lot of foot traffic coming into your place. And then TripAdvisor if you have a restaurant. That's definitely something you need to be on. So it does depend. You want to be on as many of these as appropriate. If we could give you a couple that you definitely need to be on, we would probably say Facebook, Yelp, and TripAdvisor as far as, of course that's a little dependent, but Facebook is one that when you Google something, like a brand name specifically, their Facebook's gonna come up. Sometimes their Facebook will come up before their actual website. That happens a lot. So it's very important that you're on there and you're trying to get reviews on there too, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. There's one golden rule when you're setting up all these accounts, because it can get very confusing, especially if you have more than 2 or 3. Use the same email address. This is something even when we were putting together for ourselves, we realized, some were at this one and some were at this one, 2 main ones, but you really want to stay organized and continue to be consistent with not only what you're listing and how you're listing it, but how you're accessing it. Because if you lose access to one of these things, and it's like, say it's someone who's working for you and they use their personal email to set it up, if they leave, you can't edit it, you can't adjust it. If you want to, it's a very long process. So make sure you're using the same email when you're putting this together. And I mentioned consistency. So Inside Local did an interview or a survey of over 500 local business owners and SEO experts. They discovered the most common issue that they have is consistency among all their naps, like all those different sites that we were looking at, which is pretty crazy because that's such a simple thing. It's like such a small detail to get wrong, but it happens. 41% of the time, 41%, which is like almost double what the next one is here. The next one on here we're looking at is duplicate listings, which we kind of mentioned before. If you're using the same address, that's probably going to be a conflict in Google's eyes. Google's pretty smart. But once if you already have things that are listed out there and you discover some duplicates, you definitely want to get rid of those. Because Google gets confused, so it's not going to give one more favor than the other, and the one that's maybe not as dressed up is the one that ends up showing up for people. So you want to make sure you're consistent among all of these as well. Now, like I mentioned before, it can be hard to manage this, so using the same email is important, but also going through each one of these services one by one and updating it. If say you had an address change, or you added a suite to your building and you need to add it, or there's multiple reasons you might want to change it. Something that we use is called Moz Local, but there are other services that essentially do the same thing. So what these do is they take the most common or most essential listing websites, and they will, based off of the information you put in the service, they'll help you manage and make sure they're all on the same page, as far as consistency goes. Some of these will even put your site on it if it doesn't exist yet. So some of these services, I was talking to Nelson earlier, they're some of them can be paid, so it's $30 a month, but essentially it's worth it if you're making an address change, or if you have several locations or anything like that. It's definitely worth it. It'll save you a lot of time. So that was, we talked about Google My Business, we talked about Naps.
Wait, real quick.
Yes.
So, additionally with consistency, how you present your address, you have to be consistent across all those platforms, right? So if our address is 500 South Magnolia, you could say 500 and spell the word South Magnolia. You could say 500 S Magnolia. You could say 500 S Magnolia. Being consistent with how you say it across all those platforms helps that signal with the consistency on your NAP. So, keep that in mind, as well as phone numbers, are using dashes, using dots, not just your email, but everything that you do it the same across all those platforms.
For sure. Yeah, it's crazy, even, like you said, dots, just a period. Yeah. Google's smart, but they're picky. So then we talked about Naps. So we're gonna have a little bonus round here, something that wasn't really on the list. Everybody get excited, it's a bonus round! On a Tuesday, you're getting a bonus round in your life. Remember that. So we're gonna talk about off-page optimizations. So this isn't something that when you're looking up articles about local listings that's gonna really stand out, but there's a lot of tactics that can help you, for your local business getting ranked on that are really easy to do, or even can be really fun to do sometimes. So we're gonna go through this list really quick. I don't want to spend too much time because it's the bonus round, and I don't know if you guys have deserved it yet. So let's try to earn it. All right, guys, let's try to earn it.
Do it.
So you want to make sure you're applying to local competitions. So for example, coolest office space for Orlando Business Journal, professionals on the move. Do some Googling, see what your competitors are kind of doing as far as how are they getting listed on these local competitions. So the community, get involved in the community. If you sponsor or donate your time to a specific nonprofit or charity, you want to use that, as far as if they have an event, they're going to showcase that event on their website. If you're a sponsor, they're most likely going to link to you or have your website or something if they reference you. So that's kind of a twofold benefit. You're improving your brand equity and you're getting pretty quality links to your site. We have universities. So local universities is a really good diamond in the rough. People don't realize how powerful the domain authority of edu is, .edu. So reach out to local universities, see if try to find a way to connect what you do to what the university might represent. So like if they have a specific thing on lasers and you do some laser treatments, you can try to sponsor some event that they're having or anything like that. So reaching out, getting connected with them, and if you can get a link from them, that'll be very powerful. Sponsor a meetup group. Yep. Get a link from Meetup with that specific town. Okay, you guys, you gotta win the bonus round and you're getting it right now. Meetup group. Okay, cool. Leverage current business relationships, especially for local businesses. And then the next one's kind of more the fun part that I was referencing before is the PR stunts. So sometimes you do have to take a risk to stand out. You don't always have to make it a big risk as much as just maybe an investment in time and effort. So some examples would be like guerrilla marketing campaigns, especially for the charities and nonprofits. People eat that up, they love it. Challenging the status quo. So if you have a blog or if you write news updates on your site, try to write something that isn't necessary. I mean, if it's controversial and you're okay with it, go for it. Especially having an opinion can be dangerous. But if it's something that's righteous, that's very related to your industry, it might be worth it. But if you go and you write something after this and you get in trouble for it, we're not responsible for that. So I'm saying it's a risk, but if it's the right tone and everything, you can get a lot of backlinks of people sharing that with their friends and other articles writing about it as well, especially news outlets. And then leading in innovation. So that's a pretty obvious one, but really what it is if you have a new type of technology or tool that you're using or even tactic that isn't necessarily status quo as well, you want to reach out to local publishers and news outlets and let them know, because it might be something interesting enough for them to write about, because they don't want to be behind on that once their other competing news publishers find out about it. And then spying on your competitors. So we actually use a tool called SEMrush to do this, but there's plenty of other options out there. Essentially what you can do is type in your competitor's website and see where they're getting their links from, as far as backlinks or off-page links come from. It'll give you an idea of maybe I can reach out to that same or similar type of website that's linking to them, and it'll give you ideas of what type of off-page optimizations you could do for your site. All right, great bonus round, guys.
Yeah, bonus round.
You did good.
Are we supposed to dance like that? Tim, I'm sorry. What was the name of that tool you just mentioned?
It's called SEMrush. The letters SEM and then Rush. I believe for free you can get a limited amount of information with that, or you can do a paid account. If you're really, really gung-ho on SEO for your website, your business, it's definitely worth looking at them or Moz or some of those applications or websites to get your site on and do some research and figure out what's best for you guys. So the next thing is, this is a little more in-depth as far as the website goes, but this is called schema, and essentially what it is, it's kind of an identifier for Google. So if you add this code or this snippet to your site and you see where it's in capitalizations, that's where you just enter your information. When people Google your brand name or even Google something of a service that's very specific to you, when you show up in the results, it'll pull this information straight from it. And so we provided the link right there, which we'll be sending out as well. And this link in the bottom right is like a how-to kind of give you, or this is where we got this specific template from. But it's a very helpful article as well. So when you add schema and you put this in, this is what it looks like when people look you up. So that little box to the right, this is also where those images come into play and having that high-res profile picture as well. This is what it looks like when you have that, something like the general schema that we just showed you. And then if you have something like our neighbors that's a little more complicated, you can have even more things showing up in Google results. So you have your event calendar even showing up on top of your address, phone number, and name. So the next part as far as, do you guys have any questions? Because schema is like, it's not well known, but it's, it can get kind of complicated. Whoever is managing your website, just send them that link, fill in the capitalizations and let them know, hey, can we add this to the site?
So is this what Google used to pull, like, for looking at websites and stuff? They use schema, or?
Yes. So this is specifically, so when you get Google, that this part on the right shows up with the information. It also controls the things in the main organic search rankings where it pulls from too. So this is one of those things where it's very important. Like if you add it to every page for different reasons, it's not necessarily going to boost, but what it does is it helps you stand out from the other Waldos. Because other Waldos might not have the events and the address and everything. So when they search a specific location, they're going to look for a schema first. So it's almost like you need to wear your shoes. If you don't wear your shoes, your feet are going to hurt after a while. It's not going to help you tremendously, but it hurts you not having it essentially. So beyond schema, you also want to make optimizations on your website itself, and this is just like within the content. So your H1s, your H2s, all those other, your URL even. These are things that you want to make sure you're using the right keywords from a location and service perspective. Now, this doesn't give you permission to do something, in which we'll talk about in a second, and I think you might know what it is just by looking at that. But having this information on your site is another thing where you need it. It's a need to have. It's like if you want to play, you need to have this going on. Not necessarily this is going to help boost your rankings. Just be careful not to keyword stuff in his face. Keyword stuffing? Thank you. Okay. I'm really late with these. But again, not having the proper language in these, these high impact spots on your site will, kind of just handicap you. Having them in there is another must-have thing. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So, like reading some blog posts, like I see these tag or keywords like on at the bottom of the article. Is that what? Is that SEO or is that something else? Or
that can help SEO. That's more so for user experience. So if you're interested in that specific tag, then you click on it and all the articles under that tag would show up. That actually does help SEO. It's again not one of those things that boosts it, but it is an aid. What they're looking at is let me pull our website up real quick. Oh my gosh, I should put this keywords in front of me. So we'll go to a web homepage right here. So this essentially would be like your H1. What's the first thing on that page or website? What does it represent? So that's kind of where you want to be very focused on what you're putting in that keywords. So if we go to say we were a local listing, actually we're going to go over that in a second. Specifically talking about exactly what you just asked, but essentially the high impact pages and spots in your site. So real quick, I'll just give you another example. Is right here. This is one of those header things where you want to be, for local businesses especially, you want to be putting in the right keywords there. All right. So we're going to continue the on-page optimizations. Actually adding a Google map to your website that we were talking about earlier, that you can embed. Google makes it very easy. This little link on the bottom right shows you how to do it. You can embed a custom map to your site. So if you have multiple locations, this is very helpful. In this case, we're going to go over a kind of a real life example of how some of these tactics worked. This was for a law firm in South Florida, and this was an article we wrote talking about, how to avoid car accidents in Miami. So what we did is we created a custom map within that article that actually, because they're very location focused, having an article with a Google map showing Miami, Google sees that, and it again will give Google more signals saying this is a very local to this area, and so the keywords that are related to that will start to show up as well. But embedding a Google map on, say, your contact page for your actual address, that's definitely something you want to look at doing. And so if you have like a blog or if you write articles, it's actually more so important to be very location focused. So like I mentioned, we have a client who's in South Florida. They represent like Hollywood, Florida, West Palm Beach, Miami, that area. So this is an example where we wrote an article specific to that location. See how we're using, and in this, this is very similar to what you want to do. So if you do laser hair treatment, you'd probably, writing an article talking about laser hair treatment in Orlando, or Dr. Phillips area, you can be even more specific. Writing an article using those keywords that you're referencing, something industry related, will actually be very beneficial. Once you get more traction on it. Now it does take some time, but we did this for Hollywood, Florida, for example, for this. And we kind of, we had some other optimizations for it as well, but this was kind of the big initiative. The goal was to improve it for that specific keyword. So when we did this, in 3 months' time, we raised all of their Hollywood keywords by 761 net positions, which was an average of 15 spots per position. So essentially, we moved all of their Hollywood-centric keywords up by 1.5 pages, just from producing and promoting this one article. And like I said, we had other things going on as well, but this was the biggest indicator. As far as we published this, and then we saw it in 3 months, it moved up to this type of results. So we're like, okay, this worked really well, let's do it again, let's do it for Miami. So, again, we did something that was specific to what the services they offered and the locations that they served. So it's a case study talking about Miami, and within the content, not necessarily the headline, the content, we were using words like auto accident, personal injury, again, using the word Miami, it's South Florida. Now again, you don't want to keyword stuff and just list these over and over. Google's very smart. It can tell if you're being conversational or if you're just trying to stuff keywords within your content. So when we did this one, after a month, we saw 1,184 net positions go up. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean we're on the first page for all our Miami keywords. But what it does is we saw a shift in all of our Miami keywords that weren't even ranking before shoot up to like the 3rd page, the 4th page, even the 2nd and 1st page on some of them. So again, you can make, as long as you're producing it in a SEO friendly way and not trying to cheat the system, you can see real results. And another big one about the Miami case study one was this is one of the blog articles we also released around the same time, a little bit before, and we included that Google Maps like we showed you. So that's another attribution that we're linking to such a large growth within a short period. And if you look at the other one, it only went up 794 positions in 3 months. This went up 1,184 in 1 month. So that's an example. If you have an article, if you have a blog, if you don't, and it makes sense to have one, definitely think about putting one up. But it's very beneficial to helping your local SEO. So and once you write these articles, you want to link them within your site to the appropriate pages. So for these lawyers, for example, creating a page that's specific to just Miami, and then linking to the articles that are talking about Miami to those pages, or Hollywood, the same thing. So if you have multiple locations, definitely suggest having a page for each one of those locations. Within the URL, just have like /Orlando, /Lake Mary, all those different ones. It'll definitely help you, or help Google see that you're focused on these areas, and then help you show up when people in that area are searching for you. Now there's one thing to keep in mind, is that people don't walk around like this. People use cell phones. This is an actual product that exists. I gave you the link because I was so excited that it was a real thing. People are using their mobile phones, and we've had situations where all we did was take a website that was ranking pretty adequately, and we made it more mobile friendly. Like some of the images were off the page, made it more mobile friendly. It moved up dramatically because their competitors weren't doing it. Their competitors weren't paying attention to being mobile friendly. We made these small tweaks and they shot up all the keywords that their competitors were beating them out on. So make sure your site is mobile friendly.
Tim, can I add one thing to your last point?
Yes.
Just because I worked closely with those location-specific keywords. A lot of what we were doing prior to that was trying to accommodate to like the South Florida area in terms of keywords. So what we were missing out on were some of those searches that were, you know, people don't just search, you know, Central Florida personal injury, for example. They would search, you know, you're in Orlando, you're in Mount Dora, you're in, you know, different locations. So trying to like limit the amount of, you know, digging through different materials is key here, and that's what Google is looking for, is for you to have those specific locations to make it one less step for the user.
Oh yeah, like even when I search up Orlando, Florida, it's like more specific. I was like greater Orlando area or Central Florida.
It's interesting. So when someone's, and a lot of you probably already know this, but if you're in a specific location, and so for example, if you're on your phone at Dr. Phillips and you search on your phone web design, you're going to see Orlando web design companies. You didn't put Orlando in there, but you're going to see it. So Google knows your location and it still treats it like that. Now, if you type in Orlando web design, you're pretty much going to see the same thing. Maybe you'll see some different things, you know, as far as the articles go, but especially in the maps, which is like on top, you're going to see, you know, the location-specific places. So again, the keyword stuffing is not going to, you know, not going to help you in that sense. But you know, the main indicators that we've gone over today so far will help Google know. It's Google. Google cares about the user experience, and we need to understand what Google determines a good user experience, whether we agree with it or not sometimes.
So we say like location, like you mean like actual location for my cell phone, like, and it's like, hey, you're inside Orlando, so I'll just give you relevant information to that area. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're trying to get a haircut, it's just like a haircut. Like it's going to show you barbers
Oh, right,
and
that's
stuff.
true. Yeah, and then it shows up the map, and then you click on it.
And they know that because they just pick up the IP of the device.
Correct.
That's the only reason that they know.
Yeah, so like when you're searching from your computer too, a lot of people will use incognito or like block that, you know, so Google doesn't know where you are, but it actually hurts them because when they make searches like that of things they need, like, you know, they're not going to see as good of a result as if they just, you know, let it happen. But yeah. So the next thing we're going to talk about are reviews. So this is how important reviews are, and it's very, you know, punch you in the face real quick. Not punch you in the face, I'm sorry. Just like, you know which law firm you're going to choose here. You know which one, or let's say you know which one you're not going to choose.
Yeah.
The one in the middle. It's such a, for us, it's such a, as a user, it's such a simple decision
Yes.
Split second.
between each one, all because of those reviews. So again, you want to be a Waldo, but you want to be one of the first Waldos, and you also want to be one of the highest starred Waldos. So the question, go ahead.
Oh, like, so is there a way to manage that? Like, if you get like really bad stars, like,
Yeah.
like
So-
some people.
If you're getting really bad stars, the first thing is do a better job. No, I'm just kidding. If that happens, a lot of times, if you respond to that poor review in a positive way, so not necessarily being defensive, but respond to it and then try to reach out to that person off page, you know, like email, phone call, and try to treat them. You know, let them know, hey, what went wrong? What can we do better next time? I mean, yes, sometimes customers are just bad customers. They're just maybe they're, you know, bitter about something and they're taking it out on you. But if you try to please them afterwards, they have the ability to go in there and change that review based off of how you respond to it.
You mean the customer or
Yes.
Google? Okay.
The customer. So they can go to the reviews they've left.
Yeah.
You can even walk them through it if you need to, but and they can, you know, they can amend and change what their review is.
Can they delete their review?
Yes. And then go ahead.
With the stars, does that have an impact on your ranking? Like,
Yes.
okay.
Especially on the map back here.
Oh, yeah.
So do you know how often they would scrape to see if your stars went up or went down?
As soon as someone I mean, you could probably answer this better, but as soon as someone leaves a review, it should be there immediately.
Because it's associated to your Google business
Oh,
profile.
gotcha.
And that's what's
I'm also curious about is it worse to have no reviews or a bad review? Because in my opinion, I would still probably at least look at a bad review before no reviews, because to me that says you have no experience, or you've deleted all of the reviews that you've gotten, or however, you know what I mean?
I would say it's neither. Like
Neither.
they're both
They're
equally
both
bad.
horrible, yeah.
Like, and especially because you know the way the internet works now, like it's very rare to be a service or offering that doesn't have a lot of competition in your local area. So if you're either of those, they're most likely going to choose one of your competitors who has that star rating that's above 3 or 4.
And you need 5 reviews in order for you to get stars. So otherwise it'll just show, the parentheses will show you 4, but it won't give you stars. And you'll have 4.8 until you get 10, and then you have 5 stars.
So the next question is, okay, how do I get them to review? So the first thing to get them to review would be give them a great experience. Be extra customer service, extra wanting to please them in a non-creepy way. Like give them some breathing room, but like make sure they have an awesome experience. There's another way. You can ask.
Oh.
So you don't necessarily want to beg. Okay, you want to make sure it's very fluid in conversation, or it's very organic in the way you ask. So you can even, if it's not going to work in person, might be a little intrusive, don't want to ruin their experience, you can digitally ask them to review. You can send them a link that Google provides you, and all they have to do is click on that link, and it takes them straight to the review page, where all they need to do from there is click on the stars and type in a review, as opposed to searching for you, finding you, clicking on your reviews, clicking write a review. I mean, there's so many steps there. If you just send them a simple link, especially with the way people are now, like we want ease of access. I don't want to click 100 times, I want to click once. This is an awesome way to do it. Just making sure you're doing it with a lot of candor, very, very polite, and not like leave us a review, bonus round or something like that. So obviously you want to tread very lightly when you're doing this. You can even ask for reviews on these specific platforms as well. Like we mentioned before, you really want to focus on the platforms that are catering to your business, but especially the ones that have review capabilities. So we mentioned as far as Google having that, digitally asking them for a review. Yelp, on the other hand, which is the native review platform for the Apple Maps app. So if you use Apple's native app, the reviews you see on there is going to be from Yelp. They discourage you asking for reviews. So if you leave a digital footprint of asking someone for a review on Yelp, they're gonna take it off, and they're probably gonna penalize you in some way. So you want to be very careful with Yelp. Maybe that's more of an in-person one. But like we mentioned before, if you had to choose which ones would be top priority for local businesses, these would be examples right here. Like we mentioned, Facebook, very important to get listed on there and get really good reviews on there. That's more likely to show up, on your Google search results than your website in a lot of cases, depending on your competition.
Tim, really quick about Yelp. Yelp actually has local reps in major cities. Orlando is one of them. So if you are on Yelp, I definitely do some research and reach out to that individual, because they can help you utilize that platform more effectively.
Good to know. And so we're going to look at now an example of how beneficial being on more than just Google My Business can be for your reviews and just showing up on Google. Who here knows about Pom Pom's Tea House, the sandwich place down the street? Love it.
Love it.
Bonus round again. So this shows the power of being on more than just one site. So we'll kind of highlight that for you. So I love Pom Poms. Apparently, a lot of other people love Pom Poms on a lot of different platforms. They have two different, obviously they have two different areas, but two different Facebooks on the first page with higher reviews. So if you're Google, if you're like, oh, I want to know about this place if it's good to eat, and you see this, you don't need to ask any more questions. You don't even need to click on any of those. You know that it's quality because of the amount of reviews you're seeing, not just the Google one up on the right.
Now I want pom poms today.
All right.
Now I'm try it for-
Yeah, it's good. And so, coming to the end here, SEO, and this is a quote, I can't remember where I heard it from, but I loved it. SEO now is turning into HEO, which is Human Experience Optimization. So I mentioned before, that's how Google ranks you. If you're creating a valuable, easy experience for your users, not only to find you, but when they get on your site, then Google's gonna reward you. When you try to go cut corners and do the black hat, as they call it, tactics, they may work temporarily, but those are gonna hurt you worse once Google finds out you're doing it, and then you're probably never gonna rank again until you start a new business and start a new URL. So it's all about the user. So the better interactions you can create, such as adding the Google Maps to that article, you know, that's better for the user experience. They can see the actual areas in which they can avoid an accident. So the one thing to remember when you're optimizing your local business for, you know, for SEO and for Google is not just to be a Waldo, because that's only the first step, but you want to be a 5-star Waldo. Thanks for coming. So, do you guys have any questions?
Do you have any opinions on external versus internal blogs? Like, I know recently with like the boost of Medium and stuff, a lot of people are abandoning their on-site blogs. So,
Oh, they're abandoning the on-site and then moving, yeah.
yeah.
So that's actually, there's a couple opinions, and it's kind of changed for me at least in the last couple of years. A year ago or a year or two ago, I would be a little more skeptical, because it's like I want my content on my site, especially if I want to use that content to represent my site for showing up on Google. You know, what I'm talking about there represents my site, and then it helps Google know what I talk about, what I do. But if you kind of weigh the pros and cons of backlink juice versus on-page, you know, content that you can optimize, the backlinks are very much more powerful. The thing is, when you create something on Medium or on Quora or even on LinkedIn, Google knows that that is a kind of local, you know, anyone can go in and do that, you know, type of thing. So for those certain websites, I think that's more so not for the backlink as much as the exposure. So we used to just like pick one and then put it there. But more recently, I mean, duplicate content on different sites can be an issue. But again, Google's smart. They know if you post an article on Medium and you also have that same article on your site, it's not going to help you, but it's also not going to penalize you. Because essentially you're just republishing something. And then so at the end of the Medium article, if you link to the original article, which, you know, is best practice for a lot of these things, it'll see that too. And it'll understand you're purposely pulling this from this site. So I would encourage it for exposure related reasons, just to get out there, especially on LinkedIn when you're doing like kind of freelance dev stuff or anything like that. You know, it'll be very helpful. People see you publish stuff. But I think I wouldn't let it hold you back from also putting it on your site.
I have an entirely mobile business.
Mm-hmm.
My market area is not close to where I live, because I chose to live out by Mount Dora. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But my market area is basically here in this area, about 20 miles around where we are right now.
Yeah.
Technically, my business address is my home,
Mm-hmm.
but that's just technically. There's no absolutely zero happens at my home other than me doing books and stuff.
Okay.
Is there a way to make that presence, my market area? I mean, how do I get my address to be recognized in my market area and not in my business's, my business, technical business address?
This is a very good question, because it's an issue I don't have a good answer for right now as far as like researching it. My intuition would say, which I had read before, is create a PO box in the area and use that as your address location. I don't know exactly how Google would treat that right now.
Well, I know if you go like UPS, they can give you a street address, or FedEx can give you a street address. Some companies
Okay.
give you street addresses.
Yeah.
Like when I go on a Thumbtack,
Mhm.
it actually allows me to pick the market area I want to be in. It
Yeah.
also allows me, which is really cool, to embed a map with, this is on their site, it's not
Yeah.
on my website, it's like,
I love Thumbtack, yeah.
yeah, and I get, I mean, I can't believe the amount of business I get off the Thumbtack, it's through the roof.
Yeah.
My website like zip.
Yeah.
So I'm able to do that.
Mhm.
You know, they know where I am technically. But none of that shows up. The only thing that shows up is my market area. All of my preferences as far as what kind of clients I work with, and services, all that's set up on their site. But I can't do that on my site.
Yeah. I would honestly, and this is something I'm gonna do after this, probably tomorrow morning, is I would just Google, or even try to get in touch with the Google representative somehow, but look up, I'm a mobile business, or my business doesn't have a brick and mortar location. How do I set up a Google My Business for the market that I serve? Like, I would do some digging on Google and looking for a better answer for that, because I don't want to give you that answer and then you go and get a PO box and ends up Google hates that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely look that up and do some research. I'm gonna be doing that in the morning for sure. But yeah, Thumbtack's awesome. My
Nice.
father-in-law, I set him up on Thumbtack, and he works in upholstery, and he got like 3 new clients a week just from Thumbtack.
It's super nice.
Yeah, it's real good.
It's very cost effective.
Yeah,
Very cost effective.
it's simple, super
I
simple.
spent a fortune on Facebook and got nowhere.
Really?
Nowhere.
Ads, right?
And promoting,
Yeah.
and,
Mhm.
and this and doing that.
Facebook, it's actually very powerful. It's just they don't educate you very well once you set up an ad account. They're more, hey, here's how you use it, but not necessarily here's how you set yourself up for success. We actually have some articles on our site that talk about Facebook ads, which I would definitely check it out and look at. It's a whole strategy, but they also have some resources if you dig a little deeper. But I would even look at looking for a company that does Facebook ads that might be helpful for you if you wanted to give another shot.
Yeah, sure. One thing I found out from the analytics is 18 to 35-year-olds love imagery, and they will like the hell out of your page if there's a picture.
Yeah.
They won't do anything.
They won't.
But they'll like that picture.
Yeah.
And it's weird. You look at demographics and the older, or whatever. It's just that one target group. If I put up a video, holy crap! I get likes up the nobody does
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
But I get likes because it's. Ooh.
The intent on Facebook is so different from when people are Googling you, and we were talking about this earlier too. Facebook, it's like, the way you want to use the advertising is catered to how they're using Facebook. So if they're using Facebook to read the news, to interact with friends, watch videos, look at pictures, you kind of need to play their game. And so you want to create content that's more so speaking to that. So if you write an article, so what is it that you do? Is that massage?
Yeah, it's a therapeutic massage. It's not like hand and style does stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm
Yeah.
not putting that down. But like I work with the NFL right now.
Oh, very cool.
I'm doing all the Pro Bowl players right now.
Yeah, so you were busy this weekend.
Actually, the weekends I have off.
Oh, okay.
I work with the players in their training.
Okay.
And then afterwards, I'm straighten out their shoulders and their necks and their
Yeah.
legs and then fix them up. And a whole bunch of stuff like that. Disney marathons.
So that's actually, if your target market is more broad than just athletes, that's a really cool thing to write about if you have like a blog on your article. And this would cater more to those Facebook type of users, which is like, how NFL players depend on therapeutic massage, or what benefits therapeutic massage has for these athletes. Like things that are, that are more like conversational, that are talking around what you do. And then you kind of hook them in with that. And then Facebook's very powerful in the sense of once they come to your site, you can add like a little pixel to your site where you can retarget those people who have visited your site. So you can kind of like, with content, push them a little bit further down the funnel until you get them closer to sales ready. And then you can do an advertisement for like a coupon or, any type of deal you have going on or something like that. But yeah, it is more of a long game, and it's not one of those things where you can just turn on and walk away. It takes a lot of management and nurturing to really get it right.
And it's a fine line too, because like I'm working with Tommy Shaw, Coach Tommy Shaw probably doesn't mean anything, but in the world of professional football and basketball, Tommy Shaw is a god.
Yeah.
I mean, John Elway and Tom Brady call him Dad.
Oh shit.
He basically made Tom Brady from raw to where he is today, and Tom Brady has no problem saying that.
Yeah.
However, Tommy Shaw does not like you to reference his name.
Mm-hmm.
He's Tommy Shaw. I am Tommy Shaw, damn it, and you're not.
Yeah.
And so I gotta like skirt.
Yeah. You have to talk kind of general. Yeah, that could be a problem for a lot of things.
Real quick, just on that topic, about how to rank for, remote areas. This is something I just read. So in local search arena, many service area businesses have attempted to rank for neighboring cities by creating Google My Business pages for local locations. That's not an effective office location. Some examples like virtual offices, PO boxes, and even family members' homes, anywhere that could receive verification of postcard. This led to thousands of false or empty business listings that Google has since been attempting to clean up. Now there's very strict guidelines. Virtual offices, PO boxes, and other remote locations are not actively staffed during business hours or not acceptable addresses for Google My Business. So basically it's saying that.
Don't do the PO box. Yeah. See,
Yeah.
told you so.
So
So we know we can't do that. Next step we got to find out is what we can do to solve that problem. Sure.
I wonder if they would still pick up on the street address, because I think the FedEx store will give you a street address, or if it's not FedEx, it's somebody else. They advertise on television that you can get a street address, so it looks like a legit business.
Mhm.
I wonder if Google would pick up on that.
I would say probably. Google's really smart. So
Yeah.
if FedEx advertises that that service, I don't know how they would figure it out, but eventually I think they'd pick up on it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, look into it and then
for sure.
message the group.
Yeah, let us know how it works. Yeah. So
Question about the reviews. I've been seeing a lot on Facebook. You guys have any experience with Bird's Eye, that company?
No.
As far as they got like a review app or some sort of subscription program that you can buy, and that they make it easier for the customer. I guess it's an app that a client can go ahead and download. So for example, for my wife, she does a laser hair removal session for somebody. And she could just say, hey, if I'm gonna go ahead and text you, if you do me a favor, go ahead and leave me a review when you get a chance. And then, as long as they have that app on that phone, they could choose whether they wanna leave a review on Facebook or Google or Yelp for that matter. I was just wondering if you guys would.
can they do multiple at the same time? Like just type in one review, 5-star, and then
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, personally, I just saw some of the demos on YouTube.
yeah.
I was just wondering if you guys had any experience working with that.
So there are services in which, as far as reviews go, you can use like a third party to put a review on Google, for example. I know Google doesn't like that. Like Google has identified that, and they want you to leave the review natively on Google. I don't know if like Facebook and Yelp and all them care,
Right.
But Bird's Eye, right?
Bird's Eye.
Bird's Eye. I don't remember that because that'd be
I
really
haven't
easy.
seen a bunch of them on the newsfeed. So
Nice.
just
Yeah, I think traditionally, like he's saying, there was a lot of review management tools. So what it'll do is like you'll leave the review there, and so just to make sure it's like a good review, and then they'll let the good reviews pass through, and the bad reviews they'll kind of keep like in this middleman like
right. I
service.
saw that.
So that's why like Google frowns on that, is because they want it authentic. They don't want you just like packing all the good stuff. But Bird's Eye, it sounds more of like a user convenience, like where you can specify what network you want it to display on. Sounds pretty cool.
Can somebody go on to Yelp and just leave a review? Or like with Thumbtack, it's verified. It has to have been a customer that's come through Thumbtack,
That's nice.
use your service, and then they can leave a review. Somebody from the outside, if they leave a review, it doesn't get any rating, it's just they can leave some fluff.
Yeah.
But on Yelp, like if I had a customer, loved my service, they could just, go on Yelp all on their own and just write up a nice review?
Mhm.
Oh, cool. Alright.
Yeah, just make sure, like I mentioned before, like you're not asking for it as much for Yelp, as far as digitally. If you're like in person and you mention Yelp, or you have like one of those little signs, leave us a review on Yelp. You know, that'll work for sure.
I'm terrible. I'm super hesitant to even ask anybody.
I know.
I kind of feel like if I've earned it, they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
You just gotta send them subliminal messages. You just be like, so how are you feeling Yelp today? Huh?
I shared a job that required two of us, and we were disassociated, but we showed up at the same place. It was by contract, and I never say boo, you know, because I do it with a hell of a job, and people usually love it, and they usually, a lot of times they give me comments and stuff. He, as we're leaving the door, said, "Make sure you give me a 5-star review." I'm like, whoa. And then the lady's like, "Okay." And
Yeah.
I'm like, God.
Yeah. It does. It seems very unnatural.
Yeah. That's
It's almost like that pitch at the end. We did some tours when we were on vacation. At the end, the tour guide would be like, "Make sure you go on TripAdvisor and leave us in," and that's like when you tune out.
Yeah.
You know, and you're just like, so that's why it's like, you're right. It's very difficult to come up with the right process for asking for it. You know, I feel like it's almost more appropriate in a follow-up email, like, you know, really happy that you worked with us, or like we're happy to serve you. You know, if you have a couple minutes, here's a link. We can leave this Google review. It'll really help our business, so we can, you know, continue whatever you may be. I think it feels more natural digitally than it does in person for sure. But not with you, not digitally with you. At least I'll tell you that.
Just a note on the bird's eye thing, I'm just kind of looking through their site, and it looks more like a tool for businesses rather than like an app. I haven't seen anything yet about it being an app that someone could download. It looks more like, all I'm seeing here is like a free trial and what is best for, you know, small businesses and stuff like that. So I think it's more like a reputation management tool
Okay,
rather
okay.
than like an app that someone could easily, it looks like you can send out things like, I saw something in here about like sending out an email that would have some kind of link generated for
Right.
that, but I think it's more for the actual businesses rather than like ease of access to doing those reviews from an app, from what I can see, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was curious.
Well, any more questions? Thanks for coming, guys. You're welcome for the bonus round, by the way. Yeah, thank you. But
We
don't forget
screamed.
don't forget on the way out, grab cookies, grab a drink. There's I believe, do we have a survey sheet out?